second. Oh, I think I figured it out. How's that?
That sounds good. Yeah, I can hear you better. What about you, Trevor? Is that okay? Yep. Okay.
For some reason, the preferences on Zoom sometimes kick back to like low levels of volume. So thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just a real quick reminder before we begin, just if you have any comments or anything, just make sure they're kind and appropriate. And you can chime in with the chat box, or you can, oh, I have someone in the waiting room. Sorry, just a sec.
Woo!
Couple students, 2 students.
Yay!
Yay. Unless you're talking, if you can mute yourself so there's not too much of an echo or anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute our computer as well. Anything else I forgot, Miss Ridley, as reminders?
No.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so we've got Jade and Trevor and Tamara and Serenity and John and Emily. So, and the Connells. Thank you for joining. So you probably saw the photo of what I created from Mrs. Connell's email, and it literally came from a cereal box. So this is just a cereal box I got at Dollar Tree, and I took the cereal out, obviously. But you could use any box. Like if you have a tissue box, you could do that. An Amazon box. If you get really good and have a lot of time and want to do a bigger box, you can. Something I want to do is I have a ton of those plastic little totes or little bins from Dollar Tree. You could, if you get really good at it, you could do this effect to that as well. So this is what I created, and I'll prove that it is a cereal box because I did not do the back. If you needed to do the back, you could, but I saw on Pinterest that some people were hanging them on the wall or using magnets to hang them on their fridge, because you don't have to put flowers in it. You could put notes in it. You could put papers in it. If you're hanging it, just make sure you don't put something super heavy in it, because remember, it's just a cereal box. So I decided to just kind of use it as a decoration. And if I hold it close, you can see I painted it. I did do the sides. Hi, Jada. I did do the sides to kind of match the front. Did I freeze? Hold on, guys. We might have some technical problems.
Yeah, and you're not frozen for us.
Okay, good. So I'm not frozen for the Connells. I'm back for Trevor. Okay. Sorry about that. So if you weren't able to paint a box today, that's okay, because like Mrs. Connell said, she'll record it. And then you can paint your box and then do the kind of weathered effect. So I did paint a box in advance. I did not paint the back. This one's a Cheerio one. And in the email, I did recommend brown. But if it comes down to you don't have brown, you could do gray. Just kind of make sure your dark color for your practice is on the bottom. When you get better at it, you might be able to reverse the effect and see what that looks like. And then the light color, which was white, goes on top. Okay. Also, if you want it to look like, I don't know, like a fancier box, you can cut the edges at a diagonal, but you don't have to. You could leave it. I kind of glued down the sides, the tabs or whatever, so you didn't see them. You don't have to cut the edges. If you wanted to, you could simply take your ruler and kind of measure an angle, draw a line, and then if you're allowed to use a box cutter, that's a little easier to make that angle you can. Scissors would work though. And then try to remember what you measured to here and do that same angle on this side. Draw a line and then cut with your box cutter or your scissors. And then where that meets up, and see, this one's kind of nice. It has a blue line right on there. You see this? What I would probably do if I wanted to do this angled effect, I probably would use this blue line from the company as my straight edge. And maybe that's where my angle would end. And it would kind of just go like that, and I'd cut that, okay?
but you don't have to. You can keep the box like it is. So the important thing to have for materials are your paints. If you're going to cut the box, some way to cut it, a place to do it. And I did cover my dining room table today because you could get a little paint on you. And a light paint, a dark paint, definitely want a ruler. And I know it's hard to find brushes, but these kind of brushes work the best. So this is like an art brush. You probably maybe seen Miss McShay with these. This one's a bigger one, which helps. If you use a smaller one, it's going to take you a little more time, but it's totally doable. So if you have artist brushes to do like lettering, they probably won't give you the same effect as this. This is kind of like, has a lot of bristles that are flat. So I have some paint brushes that are really skinny and have just a little bit of bristles that are kind of pressed together so that I can do cool letters. Those ones probably wouldn't work as well. I would recommend something like this. I have one that has black as well. You can tell I've used mine a lot, but they both are kind of, this one's a little poofier, but so I'm gonna stick with this white one today because I think that'll give me the best weathered effect, because you're actually, when you switch to your light paint, like I'll use this white again, you're not gonna use a lot of white paint at all, believe it or not. That's how you.
Ridley.
Yes.
So these the two we have several of these kind and only one of this. Any
So are you gonna try it with the one that is in your right hand?
Well, I guess, but I only have one, so each kid can't use it.
Oh, okay. That's true. Okay.
Just wondering because I have a bunch of these kind. Would these work okay?
That might. As long as you just don't dip a lot of paint, which I'll show that technique in just a moment.
Okay, thanks.
I don't want anyone to have to go out and buy new stuff. So I'm not saying you can't use the brushes you have at home. You just might have to adapt it a little bit and figure out what works best for you. Because this isn't about making you spend your money or going into stores right now. It's more about developing a craft. So I painted my box brown again. I just put, or will put more. I put a little bit of white paint on this, which is hard to see, sorry, on this paper plate. I'm probably gonna need more, but I'm not gonna put a lot right now because that's gonna tempt me to dip my brush a lot, and I don't want to do that. Okay. So I'm gonna get my camera so you can see how I'm gonna do this. You may not see my face. So here's my box. Probably gonna do it upside down so you guys can see it that way. I just have an old-fashioned wooden ruler. I think I got this for free. And this is gonna be my tool to make it look like wood. So to start, if it's easier, you can make the pieces, the boards, the exact same, well, around the same width as your ruler if that's easier. You can tell on mine, I didn't do that because look at the difference in width on this board and that board. But I like things that don't look perfect. So it's totally up to you. If you're someone you want every board to be about the same size, you can do the width of your ruler. But you can see on this one, I definitely didn't do that on the bottom because this one's much skinnier and it still worked out okay. Now, I'm not gonna get into precise measurements to see exactly like measuring how many boards I need to make it exactly equal. So you may at the top end up having one or the bottom that is a little smaller because really I don't want this to be too difficult. So let me see how I can do this. I'm gonna take my ruler and I'm basically gonna find the bottom of my box. And I have to think, okay, so this is a taller box too, compared to this one. So maybe it would be a great idea on a taller box to have the boards around the same width as the ruler. So I'm gonna hold that there. And this is the tricky part with cameras. I'm basically just gonna kind of put my thumb where that ruler, where the top of the ruler is laying. Because I don't want to paint yet up here. I'm actually going to be painting down here. So I'm going to remove the ruler, but not my thumb, and just kind of, just by eyeing it, put the ruler now on top of what I just covered. If you have two rulers, I suppose you could do that too. You could lay one ruler down and put another one on top and just remove that bottom one, because now this is the board you're going to paint. Okay, so that's kind of tricky for me to explain. Does anybody want me to go over that again? Okay, so I'm just holding it down. If it's not exactly level, don't worry about it. There are ways to fix that or not fix it, because maybe you want it to look kind of cool. So here's that brush that I'm using. Here's my paint. I'm literally holding it straight up and down. I'm not going to take it and go like this through the paint. I'm gonna go like this into the paint, because that's gonna give me the limited amount of paint I need to do that weathered look. So if this is my paint, I'm just gonna go, and I'm not gonna press and spin like this. I'm just going to go down and get a little paint on the end of my brush. So you can barely tell there's any white on there. Okay, then I'm going to bring it. I'm left-handed, so I often go in the opposite direction of many right-handed people. So whatever side you want to work on, just remember you're working below your ruler. That's your first board. So I like to always go this way. I don't know why. So kind of with a light motion, not super light, but I'm also not going to bear down like if I was painting a wall in my bedroom. I'm just going to go like that. It's not done, okay? I'm not re-dipping yet. So I'm gonna go back. I'm actually probably gonna swipe back in the opposite direction. And I'm not re-dipping. So I'm gonna go back to where there's a lot of paint here. I'm still holding my ruler. And I'm just gonna go back and forth, not re-dipping, back and forth. And I actually am touching, like I'm kind of catching those edges so that your board looks like it wraps around. Okay, and my paintbrush is almost dry now. So I don't like how there's a lot of more paint. I don't like how there's a lot more white here. So I'm going to be risky, and I'm gonna dip a tiny bit more. But I'm not gonna work on this side. I'm gonna come to this side, maybe in this middle part, and just kind of wipe it here. It's hard when I'm holding the box, guys. So let me just set this down. Hopefully you can still see. And also there's no white getting up in here, so I might take a tiny bit more. And if I'm not reaching places that I like, I can lift it up. There's my first board. And I can readjust my ruler. Maybe I'll use this beveled edge. I'm gonna dip a little more. Remember, there's a lot of white here, so I don't want to keep going back over that. So I could even cover it up. Okay, and I barely put any more. And there's my first board. There's my first board. Are there any questions? How's it going, okay? Okay, so to make it look like it's kind of got that space in between, you guys probably know what to do. So you're going to, from the board you just painted, you are going to, like, I don't like exact measurements, but let's say that you want I like just a little bit of the brown showing. So if I just want a little bit of this brown to be on top of that board, I'm gonna kind of do the same effect. And the paint dries so quickly, you will be able to, let me just figure this out for a second, guys. Okay, so for you guys, it's probably easier if you lay your ruler just a little bit above what you just painted. Now, don't get too scared because I know there's no ruler up here, but I'm going to give myself kind of a guideline. So I have just a little bit of paint, and this kind of brush is almost the width of my ruler, so it probably will work out. I am going to switch the ruler in just a moment so that you can see where your board's going to be, but I need a little bit of a guideline. So I'm going to do a little, just a couple brushes across to see where I'm at. See, I barely put any paint this time, so I'm not really getting any effect because I got a little scared that I was going to use too much. Okay, so lift it up. There's definitely a line in between, but my top board now is not really done. See that? So now, just by eyeballing it, the way I do it is I switch it, the ruler, to on top of the board, just like we did the first time around. And you can see I have a little bit of brush stroke right here that's higher. I'm going to use that as the point where I lay the ruler. And then I'm going to be careful when I go across not to get in my brown divider right there, okay? So, see if you guys can see this a little better. So I don't want to paint down here. I want to stay up by the ruler. So if you don't mind your ruler getting a little paint on it, that's awesome too. I may even turn the paintbrush to its side. Okay, and then I'll remove it. Now, I don't like the way this looks here. So I'm gonna do a little trick. And I'm gonna reline this up. Because it's like there's a lot of white and then almost nothing, and to me it looks weird. I'm gonna take a little paint and I'm gonna fix that up, I hope, to look a little better. Anyone have a question or need help or me to try something again? How's it going, Mrs. Connell? You can see mine's not even either. But if you're going for the old look or the weathered look, that's gonna be fine.
Rylan Aber, want to show you theirs.
Woo! Awesome. Okay, so now you're basically gonna do that same technique all the way up your box. So I'm gonna kind of, this time once I get better at it, I may not have to go, okay, this is about how much brown I want, put my finger here. You might be able just to take your ruler and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go like right about here. And then I'm gonna take my paint and put a little paint on it. Try to get my hand out of the way here. And then just swipe across. I'm gonna keep swiping. Okay. There's my third board. It's a little skinnier than the rest, so I'm gonna switch my ruler to the top of my new board so I can kind of finish it and put a little paint. I'm probably gonna go this way this time because I always start in that direction. This side ends up having more white, and I do, although I want it to not look perfect, I do like some even things. So without redipping, I'm gonna do that. Now I do notice this is really uneven right here. That's gonna bug me because I just know me. So I'm gonna go back and redip. Or I barely redip. So there's my third board. So each board is gonna look a little weathered or different. You can see, very similar. Now, if I'm like, oh, this brown is way too thick, I just have to go back, like, uh-oh, how come there's more brown showing than here? That's an easy fix. Oh, my cat may join the video, sorry, I can hear her. All I have to do is just put my ruler back under the board a little bit. Don't overdo it because then you may end up having your boards touch. And then I may just add a little bit of paint to the bottom to see if it kind of lessens that gap and they look a little more even now. So I'll do a couple more boards or one more board and I'll show you how to do the side, but you guys are gonna be able to figure that out. So I'm on my fourth board. So I'm just gonna eyeball, okay, I probably want to leave a little bit of brown like here. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of white. If you end up getting too much paint, just brush it off like on your, like I'm using newspaper or whatever. And I'm just gonna lightly sweep, sweep, sweep. And I really am staying in the exact same row. I'm not like sweeping up like this. I'm just going back and forth. I'm gonna lift it up. Put the ruler down to make the top of the board. Get a teeny bit more paint. And just kind of focus on that top to make it look like the board has an official top and a bottom. Okay, so, and then I can notice there's kind of some unevenness here. So I'm gonna go back, I'll show you. I don't really like how it swoops like down right here, that's bothering me. So I'm just gonna basically take the ruler from where it's the highest part. And then I'm gonna add a little more paint just to here to see if it kind of makes the board look a little more even and not too uneven. And there's my fourth board. That's probably my most crooked one. Woohoo, that looks good. Awesome. Okay, so you do that to the top. I chose not to do inside here because your things are gonna be inside there, but if you're using it, maybe you could maybe figure out, I did actually I did paint a little bit here. That was tricky. So that's up to you if you wanna do the inside or you can just leave it brown. The sides are not as tricky as you think. So when you get your front done, all you do is just flip it over and your lines are kind of created for you. So here's your bottom board. You're gonna want your ruler on the side to line up with the top of that board. Don't line up with this one yet. Line up with the top of this first board. Okay, because that's gonna give you that same gap between each board. So if this is right around here, I'm gonna lay my ruler down. Like that. And I'm always double checking. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just get this like, oh, is it okay feeling? And then I'm gonna paint down here. And you definitely don't need a lot of paint for the sides. So I'm actually going really light because I just dipped my brush like I would if I was doing the front. And I was like, uh-oh, I do not need this much paint. So I'm going really light. Okay, now I was a little too conservative and I made this board shorter, I can tell, than this one. Maybe you guys are like, that looks fine, but I'm gonna go back because I was a little nervous on my first one, and I'm gonna add a little more paint to that first board. Because it is kind of cool if it lines right up. Now when you go to your next board, see I have a little bit too much paint. I'm sorry guys, so I'm going to have to brush some of this extra paint off. So on my next one, I'm gonna go, it's opposite. I put the ruler down at the top of the board. Now I wanna put the ruler down kind of at the bottom of this board. So of the second board. So you're gonna line it up. So this is where the bottom of this board meets. I'm gonna line it up. And then using my rule, using super small amount of paint, I'm just gonna kind of, and I can kind of see how wide the board is. Okay, so I have a big messed up gap here. That's not a problem. I'm just gonna go back through. And I'm just gonna, I think it's because I'm doing it upside down, so I'm just gonna go back and fix that. Oh yeah, it totally kind of, there. All right. And mine's a little too light, so I'm gonna add some extra white paint. So you can see this board wraps around and meets here. The second board wraps around and meets here. Oh, that looks good. Looks really good. Okay. Some people like it where it looks like the paint is chipping off or the paint has been sanded off or weathered off by the wet, like if you ever drive by like an old barn and it's like, oh, they must have been, that barn must have been white at some time because you can see like little flecks of white still on the old barn board. That's really popular right now. But like I said, you don't have to use brown and white. You could use gray and white. You could use pink and white. You could use a blue and white. You could use blue and cream. Some yellows might work as your light color as well. If you have a dark purple and a light pink, it doesn't have to be, it will look like colored wood, like painted wood, okay? So to get back to the sides, so I can show you what I will look like when you get all, so far we have 4 boards done. I'm gonna go to about here. And I think that's what's happening. When I hold it up, I'm putting it kind of crooked. So just bear with me. I know you only can see Cheerios right now. Okay, so it kind of started that sideboard, but I need to put a little bit of a finished look on it. So we've got one board that wraps around here, the second, and now the third. Let me see if I can get my fourth. If you guys have questions, just take yourself off mute or you can use the chat. Okay, so let me see. Right, now I'm going to position it. Oh, that's a little too wide, so I'm going to move the ruler down. I didn't redo it because I don't want it to be you know, obvious that I made a mistake there. I need a teeny more paint. Okay, so basically you would follow that pattern all the way up and then look at the sides. Okay. You know, if I looked closely, I probably could go back and maybe this is a little too wide. I can go back in and fix that so that it looks proportionate. But some of you might say, who's going to see the side anyway? But it depends.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
When you're done, do you ever put like any kind of a clear coat or anything on it to?
Yes, you can. I didn't on this one, but I actually might because I really ended up liking this. So I may use it for somewhere in my home. So, oh, well, for kids, let me go grab something real quick.
Okay. I just remember real thin. It's kind of.
Okay, so for probably the easiest thing for kids is Mod Podge. So this, it looks like a glue, looks just like my paint, but you are gonna get it seals your project. So it'll put like a clear coat over it, so if water got on it or something, it won't get ruined. Now, here's the thing I like. I like Mod Podge that has a matte finish. That's gonna be dull. I do have the regular Mod Podge, which is probably the most popular. That's gonna give you a really shiny, clear finish. So some people like that. But if you are kind of like, oh, I didn't do my best job, but I want to keep this, I find if you use the matte one, it hides your imperfections more than like a shiny luster. And they sometimes have these in this size at Dollar Tree in the school supplies section, kind of before after the poster board. Now, if you have clear spray paint, I think I talked about this when I did the jars. I have a certain brand that I love, but it's hard to get that now because around here only Lowe's and Walmart have it, and like it's, you know, we're really not promoting a lot of people to go out and buy non-essential things. But there are some spray paints that you can spray on it that you could have it shiny clear or flat clear, but you could do that as well. Especially if you're using watercolor, not watercolor paint, but like the paint like Ms. McShay has that can wash off clothes. If your project did get wet, you might mess up your paint. But if that's the only paint you had, hey, that's what you have. If you can seal it with something like Mod Podge, that's great. If not, I mean, that's totally up to you. You can always put some sort of sealant on it later as well. Just dust it off first if it got a little dusty. So you could. Some people are like, you can spray paint cardboard. Absolutely. You can spray paint lots of stuff. I didn't want to require spray paint for this project, but I could have very well spray painted this box brown. And then so you can't spray paint this effect, but for time, if you want to speed up the process and you are allowed to use spray paint, you could spray paint the box. But I painted it just like you guys did with this brown, and it's supposed to look like a rusty brown. So that's what I did as well. So how's it going, everybody? I know we got some people that are just checking it out. Oh, we got, see, Mrs. Connell's done already. I love how you did the top on his edge. Look at how he did his edge. That's exactly, you're gonna have that cool little part up here. That is awesome. So he continued, he didn't say, oh, well, what do I do with this? He made it look like there's a little triangular piece of board right there. And that's awesome. That is awesome. Because even though there's no board across here, that's still that whole effect for the side. So if you do cut this lower, continue all the way up, even though you don't have a board here to match it up with, you'll be good enough from doing it here to figure out your spacing here. That's awesome. Pretty cool. Okay. And maybe you're like, okay, I just can't figure out how to get it look weathered, and I just really like stripes. Hey, that's what you like. So if you want to just do full out stripes without this like weathering, you can. Now, if you're like, well, I like the weathering, but I use too much paint, let it dry. If you have sandpaper, like a very fine sandpaper, you could even go over it with the sandpaper. But I'm going to warn you, if you use it too much, your Cheerio box will show through. But sometimes that also looks cool. So you don't want to get your sandpaper and be like, go real fast, because you're going to take away all your white and all your brown, and then I'm going to start to see the little Cheerio guy, I bet. And I'm going to be like, oh no. But if that happened, could you go back and repaint? You could. It's just, those are steps that might take you a little longer. If you're decided to not use a cardboard box and you want to use something that's plastic, just maybe test your paint out on that first, because some paint, if you've ever painted on a plastic or glass, it might start to bead up and it never seems to stick to your item. So you always want to test your paint on something. But if you're using cardboard, any paint should work on that super duper well. It really, really should. I think I'm going to fix this one, the top of this one. I didn't really like that, so let me fix that. Now, if you have too dark paints and no light paint, you could try it, because just by going lightly with your brush, it may give it enough, even though you're using two dark shades of paint, that if you're going light with one of them, that still may give it a weathered look. Okay, so now I've made this little thingy right here that I don't like. I'm going to disguise it. Okay, and then I may go up a little bit. Something also I didn't want to require, because sometimes it can get a little costly, is if you know what painter's tape is, for cardboard boxes, painter's tape, you could tape off where you should paint and where you shouldn't. If you use regular masking tape, I was worried it would rip off parts of your cardboard, because painter's tape is made to be stuck on something and then removed without tearing off, you know, the material behind it. So painter's tape could also help you figure out, where do I paint and where do I not paint. But once again, that you might have some of that at home, but I didn't want to have people to thinking, oh, I have to go out and buy that, because that's really specific. Okay. So there, I just did my next one. And you can see some parts have, probably on camera, it doesn't look that great, but you can see where there's darker white spots. But honestly, in the light in our homes, that really just makes it look more like the effect of old wood or weathered wood. I mean, and like some people are really into certain color schemes right now, black and white. Let me just check the chat. If you have to go, Emily, that's totally up to you. You can stay as long as we're still Zooming. I do have to go to the eye doctor soon, but if you have to go, I'm sure Mrs. Connell understands. Thank you for messaging or chatting them. Okay, so if you're making something for your bedroom and you have a certain color in your bedroom, I know that a lot of people like grays and blues and such. You can always test it out on a sheet of paper to see if you like the combination, because you're using just such a light amount of paint that it should work. Okay, so I'm frozen for some people.
Yeah, you're not frozen for us.
Okay. So hopefully it comes back around, Trev. You can always test it out on a sheet of paper to see if you like the color combination as well. Now, I could go a step farther, but I'm not going to do it today because I don't want to confuse you, but I have another shade of brown that's lighter. If I wanted these boards to look dirty, which you're like, why would you want something to look dirty? Well, some decorating ideas are to make things look, like I said, old or old farmhouse or rustic, if you've heard your parents say that, or primitive. I could very, very lightly use another shade of paint to kind of go over this white to make it look kind of dirty, which you're probably like, I don't want that. But that's kind of a trend that I like in my house. So I have kind of an old farmhouse, so I would do that too. Okay. Let's see if I can do one more board. And if you had real wood, you could do this to real wood. I mean, I think you just have to experiment or test it out, the paint you're using on whatever surface. Plastics and glass are harder sometimes with paint. You'd be surprised at which ones you're like, why isn't my paint sticking to this plastic, container? It's just the type of plastic and the type of paint. They don't work well together. Okay, I was a little too cautious and got very little paint. And wherever I set if I just dipped my paintbrush, I try to set my paintbrush down where there isn't a lot of paint yet, so that it doesn't look like the weathering is not happening in one area. Kind of want a little bit of weathering across the whole board. And I would do the sides. If I wasn't on camera, and probably you guys too, you'll find this will go a lot faster. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. I know you see me going back and redoing stuff, but it's almost like I'm making it imperfectly perfect. I don't know if that's a oxymoron, but I just maybe invented that. I have done some things where I wanted this one to look like boards. So that's why I made a little bit of brown to come through. I mean, if you wanted to even take like I didn't try this, but I just thought of it. Let me check the chat, sorry. Bye, John. Bye, Tamara. If you wanted to look like there were little nails, you can even take a dot of silver paint, which I know silver is like, or gray, or if you had a silver Sharpie, a black one, because a lot of old fashioned nails were black, you could even put like a little nail here and a little nail here, a little nail here and a little nail here. So it looks like there's little tiny nails that were hammered in to hold the board on. Don't put like a nail maybe in the middle, make it on the ends of the board. So that's something I could have done as well. It would be kind of super cute. And I wouldn't go and do the nails on everything. Do like a nail here and here. See if you like it. If you like it, continue on. If you don't like it, just cover that up back up with the white paint. Oh, sorry, John. Thank you. So there are all kinds of cool things, I guess, that you could do. So what I was saying before is if you don't want the board look and you just have a super small, maybe a little tiny, I'm trying to think, like sometimes jewelry comes in a little box. You could just weather the side of the box too. You don't have to make it look like boards. You just basically would use very little paint. You paint the box whatever color you want for dark, like maybe gray, and then take like this. I love this. Is my Mrs. Howe got me this. This is actually chalk paint. It gives it like a real chalky, it's not like chalkboard, but it gives you like a dull finish. And I love the color. It's not really white. It's not really cream, but it's in between. And you just lightly go across your surface. Okay, so you don't have to do it like boards. You could just do the painting effect on the item that you want painted. I don't know if I have anything like that. Well, this one kind of, I showed this when I did the jars, but I painted this jar with this light. I used 2 light colors too. I painted this jar spray paint though with this light brown, and then I went back over it with a paintbrush and added some white weathering. So this one does not have a lot of weather or white paint on it, but that's just because that day I liked it to look like this. So that's on a jar. Okay. Do I have anything else that I've done? Let me see. Oh, I can show you this. So this little decorative jug was actually this color. It came this color. I didn't even paint it. I just used some white paint to kind of, I don't even remember when I did this. I probably just went up and down because it's such a long kind of, this is glass. Well, it's ceramic, I should say. This is ceramic. So I think I did this last summer. So I didn't even put another dark color. I just went with the dark color that it was. And I just kind of went like this because I didn't want the dark color anymore. And you can see right here, it had, that's the color it was. But I didn't mind that showed through. I thought it kind of looked cool. I might have used a little sandpaper to do more distressing up here, but that's kind of the same idea. I just didn't make it look like a boards, but I did, just up and down strokes. But this one I did cover a lot with the light color, so that one has like a lot. Whereas this jar did not have a lot of white. So you can see like the difference of that as well. Yes, we see a lot of people have left, and that's probably because it's been almost an hour, but that's okay. Are there any questions from anyone that's left? I didn't finish mine yet, but I will, because I do not like to throw things away at all. Let's see. Mrs. Connell, I'm trying to unmute you, but it won't let me.
Yeah, I don't know if you can since I'm the host. I think we don't have any, but
okay, so your daughter's box, I can that looks awesome. Like hers looks like real old, like it looks cool, and I love the size of your son's box. That looks awesome.
Yay. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And we were talking about it when we were on mute that I think they're gonna make these for I like the little flowers you put in. We were maybe bake flowers or something. And give them to my mother-in-law we didn't actually see her on Mother's Day, but we're gonna I think see her this weekend. So
yeah, and if you want, let's see, cool. Oh, that's cool, Trev. Now see, Trev just gave me an idea. He left like a section open in the middle. Maybe you could put like a Happy Mother's Day. I know that happened, but we're talking about that we all didn't get to celebrate it. Or you can always just leave it like this, or invent your own way. If you really want it to say something, you can invent your own way to put a saying on it as well. That would be cool too, but I think it looks cool like that as well. So, and I just have a million fake flowers, as you can see. So,
where do you get them?
There's a store in Caribou called Gifts Galore. It's across from where Burger King was.
Yep.
And she is doing curbside. So I actually went to get some things from her Friday, which I haven't put out yet, but her prices are pretty good. If you are allowed to go to Dollar Tree, if you just look and hunt, because maybe you go to Dollar Tree fake flower section and you're like, those are so ugly. But if you just have a little bit of, if you're allowed to go, or if you ask your parents, if you have a little bit of patience, every once in a while they'll have some that aren't that bad. And think of it as, what if I took those ugly leaves off that stem? Because once you do that, you're like, wow, these actually don't look that bad. I don't have any around from Dollar Tree, but yeah, so you have to kind of think outside the box. Because sometimes you can only get things at the dollar store. I get a ton of stuff there. So that's a possibility too. There are some cool tutorials on how to make flowers too. I assume with paper, but maybe not just paper.
Yeah, we looked up some on paper.
Yeah. So you could try that as well. But as long as it's something light enough to not, you know, you guys all know that cereal boxes are flimsy. So just something that is not going to, you know,
Write it down.
The box break, or if you hang it, make it fall down, or so. Do we have a new? Yeah, Trevor, it does look awesome. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that, Trev. Trying to think. Yeah, anything light. You could even put a cool little message in it, and it's like your little mailbox. I don't know, something cute like that. Rolled up towels. I mean, I don't know, all kinds of cool stuff.
Bathroom, or
yeah. So what are you thinking for your next craft, Mrs. Connell? Any requests out there?
I don't have any specific requests, but yeah, if you have any good ideas, or I don't know if Trevor or John have any.
Oh yeah, if the kids could give us some ideas, that would be great.
Maybe I could put out a thing to get requests too. So.
Or we could have like a craft challenge. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for participating, and I hope that you liked it. If you have questions, you guys all know how the teachers' emails work, or just email Mrs. Connell and she can get me the question. Because I know sometimes it's hard seeing a video and trying to do the skill. So I'm totally willing to help everyone.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. I got to get ready to go to the eye doctor today, so I'm glad they're open. But
yeah, it's nice that you can get in.
And thank you guys for joining at 9:30. Originally, I wanted to do 10, but that really was because I have to go to the eye doctor. So I'm very glad, though, that we had the people that could join us, and look forward to next time.
Yay, me too. And if anyone has ideas, Trevor or John, you can always email me some ideas, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Yeah. I have some wood at home. I know boys might be into wood projects. I do have some wood. I don't own an electric saw, so everything I use, I have little hand saws. So if some people are like, well, I like the paper crafts that we're doing, or the jars, but I want to step it up. I do have some wood at home. I can't make like a table, but I have pieces of wood to make signs, or like this. I don't know if you guys can see, but this thing right here.
Oh yeah. Ugh. Like Trevor, a big
a riser. I don't know what you call it. Like it.
Oh yeah, just kind of holds up.
Yeah, it's like a little shelf, but you don't hang it on the wall. I just made that from scrap wood. Yeah. So things like that. Like I said, I don't throw things away. And there are some, I did have to use nails on that.
Yeah.
Had a type of glue, like a Gorilla Glue, E6000 kind of. If you only had access to like a really good wood glue or Gorilla Glue, you could still make something like that too.
Okay.
All righty.
We'll see if we can figure out another one or two before the end of the year.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Enjoy the day. Let's hope maybe the snow melts a little more. I still have snow at my house, so.
Yeah.
I hope
it's going. Now I realize it was you, Balin. I thought I was like, John O'Neill. I was kind of wondering, but that makes sense. Sorry for calling you John.
That's awesome. Okay, bye guys.
All right, bye. Thanks.
Thank you.